I've always been surrounded with music. It's something that gives me joy. It's something I want to do for the rest of my life. Living a balanced life and take them with me into the future.
Karolina Protsenko is one of the most recognizable young violinists on the internet. And one of the questions fans still ask most often is simple. What actually happened to her? Not the rumor-driven version, not the you won't believe what she's doing now version. The real documented story of how a 6-year-old immigrant from Kiev ended up busking on a California sidewalk and, over the following decade, built one of the largest independent music followings online. This is that story, built from verified facts about her life and career. Karolina Mykolaievna Protsenko was born on October 3, 2008, in Kiev, Ukraine, into a household where music was simply part of daily life. Her father, Nikolai Protsenko, plays guitar. Her mother, Ella Protsenko, plays piano and sings. Music wasn't a hobby that was introduced to Karolina later. It was the environment she grew up inside. In 2015, when Karolina was 6 years old, the Protsenko family relocated to the United States, eventually settling in Simi Valley, California. It was around this move that Karolina started formal violin training, beginning her lessons at roughly the same age most children are just starting elementary school. She had no way of knowing at the time that the instrument she was being handed would become the thing that defined the next decade of her life. She trained conventionally at first, private lessons, technique drills, the standard path of a young classical student. But there was something else happening alongside the formal training. Karolina had discovered a violinist named Lindsay Sterling, known for combining violin performance with dance, and she was captivated. She didn't just want to play the violin. She wanted to move with it, perform with it, the way Sterling did. That fascination would end up shaping her entire performance style, years before anyone outside her family had heard her play. In 2017, when Karolina was 9, her family began doing something that would change everything. They started performing publicly on Santa Monica's 3rd Street Promenade, a pedestrian shopping street known for its buskers and street performers. Karolina brought her violin, set up on the pavement, and started playing pop songs for passers-by. What happened next wasn't the result of a marketing plan or an industry push. It happened because strangers with phones started filming her and uploading the videos. Her performances, technically accomplished, but also visibly joyful, a young girl clearly loving what she was doing, started circulating on YouTube and Facebook. The videos spread the way street performance clips occasionally do, unpredictably, and then all at once. By September 2018, Karolina had launched her own YouTube channel, Karolina Protsenko Violin Music, giving her direct control over how her performances were shared instead of relying entirely on strangers' uploads. That channel became the foundation of everything that followed. Karolina's approach to content was straightforward and consistent. Violin covers of popular songs, filmed on the streets of Santa Monica or in more produced studio settings, often performed alongside her mother, Ella, who frequently joined her on vocals or piano. One of her early breakout videos was a busking duet of Callum Scott's You Are the Reason, performed with her mother, which drew a large audience and helped establish the mother-daughter performance dynamic that would recur throughout her channel's history. Her catalog grew to include violin arrangements spanning genres, pop, classical, Latin, film scores. And her main channel eventually built a subscriber base in the millions, with individual videos regularly drawing tens of millions of views. She also developed ongoing collaborations, most notably with Italian saxophonist Daniele Vitali, with whom she recorded a series of violin and saxophone duets, including a well-known rendition of Shallow from A Star is Born, and later a full collaborative album called Finally Together. Her music itself was released across formats too, not just as YouTube videos. She independently put out several instrumental albums of violin covers over the years, including Sunflower, 2019, and Sky, 2019, which reworked chart-topping pop songs into violin arrangements, distributed through standard streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. In 2019, Karolina's rising profile brought her to television. She was invited to perform on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, where she played a violin cover of Post Malone's Sunflower. During the appearance, Ellen DeGeneres gave her a custom blue violin along with a tip jar designed for busking. Karolina had mentioned she was saving her street performance earnings toward buying a puppy, and the appearance became one of the most widely shared moments of her early career. That television exposure introduced her to an audience well beyond her existing online following and cemented her reputation outside of internet-native music spaces. It wasn't her only high-profile encounter with an established artist either. Karolina's early fascination with Lindsey Stirling eventually came full circle. She was invited onto The Kelly Clarkson Show, where she was surprised on stage by Stirling herself, and the two performed together. A direct link back to the performer who had first inspired Karolina to combine music and movement years earlier. As her platform grew, Karolina increasingly worked with other young musicians. In 2020, she performed a live duet with singer Angelica Hale, who had finished as a runner-up on America's Got Talent, pairing Karolina's violin with Hale's vocals on a rendition of Clean Bandit Symphony. She also recorded and performed with a range of other artists over the years, including violinist Barvina, Swedish teenage musician Oscar Stembridge, singer Ali Sherlock, and more recently, violinist Ray Chun. Karolina's musical interests also extended into classical performance, which had always been part of her formal training even as her public image centered on pop covers. In November 2023, she made her orchestral debut, performing Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor as a soloist with Orchestra Nova LA. Coverage of the performance from local arts outlets noted her poise and phrasing, qualities not typically associated with a performer still in her teens. In January 2024, she performed the same piece to open a masterclass at the Colburn School in Los Angeles, working with pianist Hsini Huang, and later taking part in an interview and coaching session with violinist Jennifer. Karolina's online presence isn't limited to a single channel. Over the years, the Protsenko family built out several YouTube channels, including ones dedicated to her piano playing, family vlogging content, and her brothers Leo and Nicholas, both born in the United States after the family's move. Her main channel alone has grown to several million subscribers, and across her body of work, videos, streaming releases, and social platforms, her performances have been viewed well over 1 billion times. In 2022, Karolina launched a project called Play with Karolina, an online violin cover contest inviting fans to submit their own performance videos. Hundreds of young musicians from dozens of countries took part, and Karolina personally reviewed submissions and offered feedback to a number of participants, turning a portion of her platform into something more participatory than a typical content channel, and giving young musicians without formal access to the industry a way to be seen. In July 2025, Karolina announced a significant shift in her career. She would begin releasing original pop music under the stage name Karolina Rose. The move marked a deliberate transition from being known primarily for violin covers of other artists' songs toward writing and releasing her own material, with an emphasis on vocals alongside her violin work. Early releases under the new name included original tracks such as Advice and Good Girl. The rebrand didn't erase the violin covers or the busking history that built her audience in the first place. That catalog remains central to who she is publicly known as. But it signaled that Karolina, now approaching adulthood, was moving toward defining herself as an artist in her own right rather than primarily as an interpreter of other people's songs. Nothing mysterious and nothing scandalous. What really happened to Karolina Protsenko is a fairly linear story. A musical family left Ukraine for the United States. A young girl trained seriously on an instrument. She and her parents took that training to a public sidewalk. Strangers filmed it. The internet did what the internet does, and a consistent, years-long output of genuinely skilled performances turned a street busker into a recognized name in both online and classical music circles. Along the way, there were television appearances, orchestral debuts, high-profile collaborations, and eventually a rebrand toward original music. It's a story built almost entirely on repetition and craft rather than a single lucky break. Thousands of practice hours, hundreds of uploaded videos, and a family that kept showing up to the same street corner in Santa Monica long before anyone outside their own circle knew who they were. If there's a real story, that's it. Not a hidden secret, just years of consistent work that eventually reached the audience it deserved.